Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Becky Hayes, and I'll be the host for this TLC session, Interview Strategies. We're excited that you've joined us today, and please join me in welcoming Dr. Jennifer Reinert. Jennifer?
Yes, hi. I'm Dr. Jennifer Reinert, and today I will be presenting interview strategies. It's the small things that make a difference between an offer and things for coming in when you are looking for a job. And so I've recently graduated from the University of the Rockies Ashford online program with my doctorate in psychology. In the process, I've actually, over the last 5 years, worked my way up the corporate ladder, and I owe it both to my education and my skills, but also truly believe that it's the interview strategy what made the difference between myself and another candidate to get me where I'm at today. And actually I've talked to all the hiring managers in the process, and they were very impressed with just the different strategies that I brought to the table compared to other candidates. So I wanted to share that with you today, especially knowing that, being honored to present on Ashford University's Learning Channel, knowing that most students are eventually going to get themselves to a point where they are also going to be out in that workforce looking for a job. So starting with, so congratulations. When you hear this, on securing an interview for the position usually puts you in a select company with a position. So usually less than 2% of the candidates make it that far. So my goal for you today is to prepare you as best as I can to nail down each of the small points. So typically an interview will start out with a couple of minutes of small talk. And if you're able to make sense of the small talk, usually you can then take control of the situation and determine what the interview is looking for. So we will get to that in a few minutes. So be prepared for your interview to talk about and highlight the skills, what you bring to the company, and also have an understanding of what information they are seeking from you during your conversations. So what I like to start out with is once you have a call back from a recruiter or from a company, is really taking some time to research the organization that you will be interviewing with, and then taking your research and comparing your skills and qualifications. So how we would do that is usually this day and age, you can find most companies that you're interviewing with on a website. You probably found the ad for the job listed somewhere via LinkedIn, Indeed, from a recruiter. So you can pull bits and pieces of information between all of those sources. So when you're going to a company's website, you'll want to look at their About section, dig through their website for their mission statement, core values, any articles that may have been written online when you do an online search. Also, depending on the position that you're looking at, you can find things via social media, Facebook pages, read some of Yelp reviews. Also, financial information is another important factor when looking at the company that you're going to interview with, not only for the actual interview process, but make sure this is something that you want to, spend time, something that you actually want to go after as well. And I just say that initially when you're interviewing, every interview is a good interview, whether it's a position you truly want or not. It does give you practice to get you, to that job to your dream job. So read the job description thoroughly. So I've noticed that sometimes it might be posted on several different sites, and there may be a few different pieces of information that are on one site, and then other information on another. So what I like to do is, get out a notepad, take some notes as to the key core values that they are looking for, and then compare that to your resume. So take your resume out, look at your qualifications, your skills, what you bring to the table, and see how you can compare that with what they are looking for. This will prepare you when you get to the interview to really help you stand apart from other candidates. Also, when you're going in to initially interview, Also, let the interviewer, the person that you're interviewing with, the hiring managers, let them tell their story as well. So many times they'll come in and ask if you know about the company. And although you've done all of this research, it's nice to hear there might be some pieces that you haven't read about. So take the time to let them tell you what they want you to know about their company. But also take the information that you've learned and let them know that you have done your research, that you are interested, that you know about this company. So the next step after doing your research is get yourself prepared. So when I say prepared, I would put together a travel folder with copies of your resume. You'll want to make sure you have paper and a pen, extra copies of the resume. Make sure you know how many people you'll be interviewing with. And you will want to have some professional references put together up front to bring with you in case it's asked of you. You can also submit those later. A professional portfolio, if applicable. So if you have any certifications or any different pieces of work you've done that you'd like to put into a binder, that is recommended as well. Make sure that you know the name, the address, the phone number of the organization, and the contact person, especially if you are going to be running late or if you're having trouble finding the location, you definitely want to know who you need to call to find that information out from. So get the directions printed out where you're going. Take a practice drive before if possible. And I also recommend, and one thing that I've done is, if you're going to do a map quest on your phone the night before when there's no traffic, make sure that you've thoroughly check that out. If it's a rush hour time that you're going, say in the morning, that your time hasn't jumped as well. So I would allow, a good amount of time beforehand to get yourself there and in the interviewer's office 15 minutes early. And also put together your list of questions, which we will get to at the end of this presentation that you want to ask of them. And it really does pay to go above and beyond. So when I interviewed with my current position now, I invested in some thick resume stock paper to print my resumes out on, and nice folders with a pocket that I was able to put in, and they were inexpensive, but to actually have a folder for each person I was interviewing with my resume, with my professional reference in, that I could hand them. So then, as we're moving into the actual interview phase, first impressions really do count. So starting with the very first words that you are speaking, it is a pleasure to meet you. Thank you for scheduling the time to meet with me. Be clear, concise, and listen more than you speak. And make sure that when you get there, you really know yourself, know how well you fit this job description, what are the skills, abilities, and qualities that the company can benefit from having you on their team. So make sure when you are meeting the hiring managers that you greet them with a firm, warm handshake. And this is the same for men and women. And with a big smile on your face. Show enthusiasm, show them that you want to be there. And, of course, it is most likely that you might be a little bit nervous, but, still try to show that you're, happy to be there. It helps to relax a little bit too when you smile. Try to get comfortable. And make sure that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more too, but, you're dressed to impress from head to toe. You should really be a reflection of the quality of candidate that you are. And make sure you use good posture. So sit up straight, lean forward when while listening and answering questions. And also make sure you walk with confidence. Research shows that people who walk 10% faster than they normally do are perceived at getting things done. So as we move into dressing for success, it's still really recommended to wear conservative dark suits. But when I say that, I also think you need to take into consideration the job, the atmosphere, the type of place you're working for. So if it is that type of job, that's what I recommend. Again, you can do some research, look online, see if you can tell what other people are wearing, but always dress a step above what you feel is needed. Always better to overdress. Be very conservative as far as, if appropriate, cover tattoos and piercing. If you're working for a young, trendy company and that's acceptable, then that's a little bit different. But for the most part, I would always caution on the side of conservativeness to start. Polished shoes, closed-toed shoes, make sure your hair is cut and styled, well-groomed, but minimal with the jewelry, minimal with makeup for the women, and no perfume, just to make sure that it's not irritating to the person you're interviewing with. Make sure that your clothes are pressed before going, but it really does set you apart from the other candidate. This is what you'll be representing, to the company. So they want to make sure that, you're dressed for success. Next, I'd like to talk about, so what I recommend is have note cards that you make up before you get to the interview and practice what you're going to say, put it on paper. So when we go from the small talk, we're going to move into taking the lead of what the interview is asking of you. So usually what they would like to know is for you to summarize your career, talk about accomplishments, talk about next steps in a career, but you'll want to be able to take and make an opening sentence, just really taking that one sentence of what you're looking for in your career and 1 to 3 sentences of your proudest accomplishments and what your goals are, where you're looking to go. That's pretty much the way to start out. And then you can move into your resume. So looking at your education, you can go through your different pieces of your education on your resume, any certifications that you might hold that are applicable to the job that you're interviewing for. Moving into your career path. So when we move into our career path, we want to look at work experience. You can let the interviewer dictate whether they want you to start out with your most recent and move backwards or vice versa. What I like to do is have a copy of the resume in front of me as well as a copy of the resume in front of the people that I'm interviewing with and kind of move through the steps of my work experience history and walking through each piece, especially the highlights, the points that are applicable without making it too long and wordy. You can also talk about different clients that you've worked for, if you've done any outside consulting work, any work for any companies that might be impressive to the interviewer. So then there'll be commonly asked questions throughout the interview. So I would like to highlight some of the most commonly asked questions during interviews and suggest ways to answer them. Be very flexible in your responses. So again, although you may have gone through your note cards, you may have memorized your different responses, be flexible. So if the hiring manager is leading the conversation in one direction, you may be adding to what you're saying and you may be subtracting from your list. So I always like to really make sure that I am listening more than I'm talking, so that way I'm not talking myself out of the position as well. So sometimes we can say too much. So you want to say, just be very clear and direct and say the minimal, responses of what they're looking for. In the next section, some of the key questions that are asked in interviews usually start with your greatest accomplishments, your greatest weaknesses, why do you want to leave your current position, why we should hire you, and where do you want to be in 5 years. So that's typically the pattern that I've seen in most of the interviews that I've gone through, although again, this can vary. So when we're looking at our strengths and weaknesses, you'll want to think of positive traits and be able to give examples for those. And then for your weaknesses, and I know this is usually a really hard one for most people, and it seemed that in the past we would take an easy weakness, almost a positive, and turn it into a weakness, such as I'm an overachiever. But I think that kind of became overused. So now what is recommended is really show that you're human and think of something that you can admit to as a real weakness, and address what you've done to overcome that or what you're working on to overcome those areas. And when we talk about why do we want to leave a position, always talk positive about the current position you're in or the position you've been let go of, while talking about wanting to grow and move into a different direction. So when we talk about our greatest accomplishments, the best way to answer this question is by using the STAR, S-T-A-R technique. Since past performances can be a good prediction of the future, interviewers ask questions to see if candidates have the skills and experiences required for the job. So listen to the question and think of an event. So what I like to do is have a few of these, again, kind of written out on note cards. So think of times in your previous life, in your previous education, in your previous careers, where you've had a situation or an event that you were in. Explain the task that you had to do, what the results were, and the actions that you took to get to that step. So that is the best way to really lay out your accomplishments. And I do have a list of additional interview questions, which I would like to send out in the slide presentation. So I'll read you a few at the moment, just kind of touch on a few of them without reading the entire list at this time, but be happy to email those out to anybody that is interested. So just some of the key questions that might come up are, what distinguishes you from others in the field? Describe difficult situations and how you've handled them. If this is a management job, they are going to ask you your management style. Do you prefer to work on a team? Do you prefer to work alone? Some of the other questions that might come up. They may ask you about high-pressured situations, how you've handled them. Questions about relocation may come up. Financial questions may come up about how much you're looking for, how much you've made in the past. So these are a list of questions that I highly recommend when going into a job interview that you print out ahead of time and take some time to really think about these answers and write them out. It helps to practice at home so that you're not thrown off when you're in the interview process. So let me touch upon briefly just some of the big interview mistakes that are made that we want to make sure today that we cover. So candidates more often than not miss an opportunity to differentiate themselves during an interview. This is typically done by not answering the question, do you have any more questions for me? So the three most common responses are, you are interviewing, so you have plenty of time to think of and ask very probing, thoughtful, provoking questions. Your dual role in an interview is to market your skills and interview the company as well. So here you want to really take the chance to shine, go for it, ask appropriate questions that will provide you not only with valuable information about that company, but questions that illustrate your confidence, your strengths, your depth of knowledge, and your preparedness. So I say don't ask shallow questions, ask those more thought-provoking questions, and always make sure you have a few questions to ask. Never state, you've answered all my questions. It really shows that you haven't done your research. But again, don't be caught like a deer in headlights approach and be thrown off by this. Again, some of the common interview blunders are over-explaining why you lost your last job. Just stick with a short answer that conveys why you're no longer employed for your previous job, if that's the case. Answering questions in a rambled, non-focused manner. So again, if you really take the time to prepare, these questions will come a lot easier for you. So, kind of throw in a little bit of sense of humor, loosen up where it's necessary. Companies want to hire somebody that not only are educated and have the skills, but that are likable, that they feel will really fit with the other folks on their team. So it's okay, to smile a little bit and have a little bit of fun. Again, not being prepared, that's definitely a common interview mistake. Focusing too much on what you want. So remember the reason why you're there. The company has a problem that you're hoping to solve. And let's see here. So then we're going to just move on. Do not bring up the subject of salary and benefits. Those conversations should always be saved till a later point. With that being said, one thing I do like to do is very initially in the research process, if there is an opportunity with a recruiter or a HR personnel that's questioning you on the phone before you even get to the interview process, and there are some qualifications that need to be met, and you don't want to waste time for the interviewer and yourself, then you might want to ask those up front or go to websites like Glassdoor to see if you can get any of that information. But absolutely not the appropriate time in the initial interview to be asking those questions. If you are given the next steps, then that is the appropriate time to do it. And one thing that I've learned definitely is really key at the end, especially you're going to get the question asked, why should we hire you? So make sure your answer correlates back to the position and the highlights from your past accomplishments, and they prepared you for the challenges that they are encountering with their company. Remember, the reason that you're interviewing is that company has a problem that you're trying to solve. Be that person that can help them do it. The objective in all your answers should correlate back to how you can solve their problem. Try not to say the same thing that the person that interviewed you before said, and differentiate yourself from others. And definitely, one personal piece of advice that I like to give, kind of being in sales and knowing the sales process is at the end, always ask for that next step. And that has definitely been one piece that has differentiated me above and beyond in all interviews that I've been in. So I like to end the interview with asking them if they have any concerns about my qualifications for the position so that I can directly answer those for them before leaving. So it kind of leaves all unanswered questions, before leaving that interview. So, and then asking them what the next steps are to move in the process, showing them that you want the job and that you can be direct. So thank you for listening to my presentation, and good luck with your job interview.
Thank you, Dr. Reinert, for your presentation. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you very much. That's some great information. Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of TLC, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.